Hey there, Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems and Diane'sDozen.com. Here with number 12 of Diane's Dozen. If you want to, I'll do a recap after this, but we've talked about a lot of things, and today, as we end and we come to the last one, this may be the most important one. I tried to start and end with two that I think are the most important. Discipline was number 1. Number 12 is responsibility. Take responsibility. Now, let me caution you, I'm not talking about being a martyr. That's not what this is. This isn't about, oh, it's raining outside, it's my fault. That's not it, right? But ultimately, as the business owner, ultimately as the entrepreneur, right? The business is your responsibility. Everything that happens or doesn't happen ultimately comes down to, falls into your lap. And so just take responsibility. And the first thing we need to take responsibility for is ourselves, right? And when you really think about it, that's all you can be responsible for. You can't determine what other people are going to do, but what you can do is be responsible to them, not for them. In other words, you're responsible to them and being able to provide the tools and the things they need in order to do their jobs. There's a lot of, I think the piece of, the two things that I think sports gave me the most was discipline that we talked about in the very first principle, and the sense of responsibility. Being responsible for myself, that means I've got to train. That means I have to stay in shape. That means I have to eat appropriately, nutritionally, because that's being responsible for me and to me, but it's also being responsible to my teammates. Because it's not just about me, I'm responsible to them as well. They depend on me to do my part, to pull my weight, to play my position, and to be the best I can be. So the responsibility piece is a big deal when you think about it, and it's also an honor and a privilege, both from an athletic and sporting event and from the perspective of your business. What an honor and a privilege to be responsible for other people's incomes, at least part of them, right? Part of their income, maybe not all of them, depending on how you run your business, what kind of business you have. What an honor that is. What a gift that is. Now, ultimately, they're responsible to do back to you, right? It's a give-take, but when you're responsible and not a martyr, you realize that ultimately you have less control of most things than you thought, but ultimately you're in control of you. And so when you're responsible, you make the tough decisions. You do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you do them because it's your responsibility. When you have kids, your responsibility, intensifies, it doubles, it triples, it quadruples, it's 100-fold, whatever, right? Same thing in your business, right? The bigger your business grows, the more responsibility you have. Now, the great news is that you can use leverage. You can scale. There's a lot of things that you can do, right? You can automate. You can use other people's time, other people's money, all kinds of different things. But from a responsibility perspective, ultimately, it comes down to us, to you. And sometimes that seems like a lot. Sometimes that seems heavy, right? And it is. But you can think of it as it's a heavy burden or it's a gift. I think of it as a gift. I get to be responsible for me every day, which means I can use the discipline I need to get up, to get moving, to do the things, to shoot videos, to write copy, to do whatever those things are, and be responsible ultimately for the outcome. Now, I use all of the things that we've talked about in these 12 to run my business and to have that responsibility. All of them. just like I did when I was a Division I athlete. Just like every athlete, Division I, Division II, Division III, high school, college, pro. The responsibility that you have to yourself and that you have to your team and that you have to your clients and your prospects. Right? I really believe that there are people out there waiting for you and that you're the only one that can touch their heart. You're the only one that they can work with and get what they need to get. That's a big responsibility. And I know this for a lot of reasons, but I'll quickly tell you a story. I was at a kind of a festival kind of in a small town that they just had vendors kind of lined up on the main street, right? And I'm walking along and there's a Jamaican lady who was very friendly and offered us some little drinks and some samples of some food, and it was amazing. I mean, it was really good. And so we started talking, and she has a little bit of a small image of where she could go. And so I said to her, can I call you next week? Because I think I can help you. And she said, sure. And so as we began to talk, she said to me, she said, Diane, I bet I've had a dozen people talk to me about, they wanted to invest, or I should have a food truck, or I should do this, or let me help you with that. And she said, none of it felt right until you walked up. And I know that you're the person that can take me to where I want to go with this business, right? Which happens to be a million plus. And in that moment, I was reminded again, right, of the fact that maybe I am her person. Maybe I am the only person that she could resonate with enough to do this, that she trusted, right? And so I have a responsibility to talk about my business, to let people know what I do, right? I'm not talking about in an invasive way. I'm not talking about going to a dinner party and hi, I'm in business, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about being overly aggressive, but the responsibility to let people know that you're there and what you do and how you can help them. So the responsibility piece is really a bigger piece than most people think. But ultimately, it's about how can I be responsible to me so that my life is full, so that my family's life is full, so that I am on purpose, so that discipline is easy, because it's easy to get up in the morning. It's easy to sit at your desk for however many hours you want to work. When this responsibility piece, when you feel that, not from I'm responsible, but from a soul perspective, from I get to do this, I get to help, I get to, it's that kind of thing. It's the same thing that you see in sports. The release when people win a big event is all of this. It's the responsibility, it's the dedication, it's the determination, it's all of the things they went through to get to that point. And they get to do it again. They get to do it again, right? And so having that responsibility to yourself is really where it starts. And the rest of it will happen. And when it happens, it will positively affect the lives of every person that you touch. I talk about the ripple effect. And ripple is an acronym. Repetition in place produces little effects somewhere. The ripple effect that you have. See, when you have a new client, or you're talking to somebody, or you're working with somebody, no matter what you do, I don't care if you cut hair, I don't care what it is that you do, right? Or if you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're an author, whatever it is, when you affect that one person, think about all the people now that the lives affect because they talk to people, they take your message on. hundreds of thousands, probably, sometimes with the ripple of one. With the effect you have on one, that's a big responsibility. And I hope that you love that responsibility as much as I do in my life and in my business. If you'd like a copy of all 12 of these, now that we've got to it, go to dianesdozen.com, and there's a nice sheet that we've put together there for you. Make as many copies, do whatever you want with it. I hope that you use this. I hope this is helpful, and I hope it comes in to your life and to your business every single day. Until next time, make it a great day.